Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a highly detailed, incredibly urgent document. We're looking at the April 2026 Frontline Insights Report, published by Legal Action Worldwide, or LAW for short. This report provides a really comprehensive legal and humanitarian analysis of the rapidly escalating crisis in Lebanon. I know, it's a heavy topic, but understanding the legal frameworks that govern modern warfare, it's absolutely crucial. So, we're going to break it all down for you right now.
Now, before we dive in, it's super important to anchor our analysis objectively to our source material. Everything we're discussing today, the data points, the quotes, the legal theories, the allegations, these are all findings directly documented by Legal Action Worldwide, using their own evidence and legal analysis. We're just looking at what they found.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap. We'll be covering escalation and mass displacement, the humanitarian toll, vulnerable groups and SGBV, international humanitarian law, evacuations versus forced displacement, and finally, the path forward. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Escalation and mass displacement.
So, according to the law report, this crisis didn't just happen overnight, right? It's actually rooted in a chain of events, starting way back in October 2023 with cross-border exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah. Fast forward to November 2024, a fragile U.S. and French brokered ceasefire was put in place, but the report notes both sides repeatedly violated it. Well, that tension finally snapped in March 2026 following major regional escalations, leading to massive displacement orders and an Israeli ground operation into southern Lebanon. And all of this culminated on April 8, 2026, with what was called Operation Eternal Darkness, which was a massive wave of strikes across Beirut, the south, and the Bekaa Valley.
1.2 million. The report documents that 1.2 million people were displaced in literally just a matter of weeks following that March 2026 escalation. To put that into perspective, that is nearly a fifth of Lebanon's entire population. Think about that for a second. The sheer speed and size of this displacement make it one of the most sudden, large-scale crises in the country's history, placing an unimaginable strain on a nation that was, frankly, already grappling with severe economic instability. Section 2. The humanitarian toll. 1,784. That staggering number is the amount of individuals killed in roughly 5 weeks, as of April 9, 2026. And LAW notes a deeply concerning breakdown within this figure. It actually includes approximately 130 children and at least 56 medical workers. On top of that, nearly 6,000 people were wounded. Keep in mind, the report explicitly highlights that a lot of these casualties occurred in densely populated civilian areas, often without any prior warning. But the law report outlines that this isn't just about the casualties. It's also about the systemic isolation of southern Lebanon. We're talking about the deliberate destruction of vital civilian infrastructure. Between mid to late March, the Israeli military struck at least 4 bridges over the Litani River. Actually, Defense Minister Israel Katz ordered the destruction of all crossings over the Litani, alongside the accelerated demolition of homes in border villages. Add to that the forced shutdown of at least 6 hospitals and 49 health clinics. You basically have a recipe for trapping civilians in the south, completely cutting off their access to food, medicine, and safe evacuation routes. Section 3. Vulnerable groups in SGBV. So, law explicitly details how this kind of massive displacement structurally enables sexual and gender-based violence, or SGBV. You see, it's not just that the conflict itself is dangerous. It's that the very conditions of displacement strip away basic protections. Shelters are incredibly overcrowded with absolutely no privacy. The loss of identity documents means women can't access medical care or even file police complaints. The report also brings specific attention to migrant domestic workers trapped in the kafala system. Many were simply abandoned by their fleeing employers without their wages or IDs, leaving them incredibly susceptible to exploitation. Plus, you've got over 180,000 displaced school-aged children right now, facing immense psychosocial distress and severe risks of abuse. Section 4. International Humanitarian Law. Now let's get into the legal side of things. According to law, we're actually looking at overlapping armed conflicts here. It's like a giant puzzle. On one side, you have an international armed conflict, or an IAC, between the states of Israel and Lebanon, which was triggered by military force on sovereign territory. This is governed by the full 4 Geneva Conventions. But then, on the other side, you have a non-international armed conflict, or NIAC, between Israel and Hezbollah, so a state versus an armed group. And that is governed by Common Article 3 and customary international law. Understanding exactly which laws apply to which actors is basically step 1 in any war crimes investigation. And under those legal frameworks, LAW raises some really serious, specific concerns. For instance, they document credible reports of airburst white phosphorus munitions being deployed over residential neighborhoods in towns like Yahmur and Khiam. Now, while white phosphorus isn't entirely banned globally when used as a smokescreen, using it as an incendiary weapon in populated civilian areas violates customary international humanitarian law regarding indiscriminate attacks. LAW also highlights the disproportionate destruction of civilian objects. They argue that destroying, say, every bridge over the Litani River creates cumulative civilian harm that far, far outweighs any isolated military advantage.
Section 5. Evacuations versus forced displacement.
Now, this is a massive point of contention in the report. It contrasts two completely different legal realities. Israel's stated position is that their evacuation orders are lawful advance warnings, essentially precautionary measures required by international humanitarian law to protect civilians before an attack. However, law's legal analysis argues the exact opposite. They state that the totality of the circumstances on the ground actually transforms these warnings into unlawful forced displacement. And that's defined essentially as coerced depopulation, where civilians have no genuine choice but to leave, and, crucially, no guarantee of ever returning.
To support that argument, LA highlights specific rhetoric from leadership, like this particular quote from Israeli Defense Minister Katz. He stated that displaced residents will not return until the safety of Israel's north is guaranteed. LA argues that this vague, open-ended conditionality totally removes a civilian's genuine choice. Think about it. If your return is conditioned on a subjective, indefinite security guarantee determined by the displacing force, it's no longer a temporary evacuation for your own safety, right? It becomes an indefinite bar on your return. According to the report's legal experts, there are 5 key factors that point to an intent to permanently depopulate the area rather than just temporarily evacuate it. First, the massive scope. The orders literally cover 14% of Lebanon's national territory. Second, that open-ended conditionality we were just talking about. Third, the coercive environment itself. Destroying bridges and heavily bombarding the area forces people out. It's definitely not a voluntary exit. Fourth, discriminatory framing, as officials specifically singled out Shiite residents for displacement. And fifth, the explicit invocation by Israeli officials of the Beit Hanun and Rafah models from Gaza, which law views as a stated method of deliberate, permanent structural demolition.
Section 6. The path forward.
So, where do we go from here? The report insists that in an emergency like this, legal assistance absolutely must be treated as a frontline emergency need right alongside food and shelter. Because without IDs and legal protection, vulnerable people simply cannot survive displacement safely. Beyond that, LAW advocates for 4 critical steps: an immediate cessation of hostilities and protection of civilians, a guaranteed right of return for the displaced once active hostilities actually cease, unimpeded humanitarian access to all areas, especially south of the Litani, and finally, international accountability and the preservation of domestic justice systems to investigate any alleged war crimes.
I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought derived directly from LAS findings. We have these incredible legal frameworks, the Geneva Conventions, customary international law, the whole shebang. But how can they be practically enforced in modern, overlapping conflicts to actually protect the most vulnerable? When the bridges are down, the courts are closed, and civilians are totally trapped, how does the law actually reach them? It's a sobering reminder of exactly why understanding these legal frameworks matters so much for global accountability. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking those tough questions, and I'll see you next time.